Hey, welcome back to Azure and the Enterprise. I'm Lyle Dodge. Today I have with me Todd Robertson. Todd, nice to see you.
Good seeing you too, Lyle. Always a pleasure.
So today we're going to talk about the ARO Toolkit. So this is something that IT built. So what is ARO Toolkit?
So ARO Toolkit is used for, it's an agentless, serverless solution that you deploy to your Azure subscription, and then it'll automatically optimize your Azure resources. When you initially deploy it, it won't do anything. So you have to go in and consciously take an action in order for it to actually start optimizing your resources. The difference is between a lot of solutions is this is modeled kind of after Azure policy, same sort of construct. What that'll enable you to do is manage things in big chunks, as well as when new resources come online, it'll inherit that same sort of policy-like construct.
Okay, well, that's cool. And this is something that we've developed in Microsoft IT, right?
Yeah, correct.
So now it's going out to the public.
Yeah, and to be clear, it was always meant, as part of the core design principle, always meant to be public. So internal, external, all the same. One of the core design principles was native Azure, no custom glue. So ARO Toolkit in one slide. I think I mentioned the first points about it being decentralized native solution. Automatically, optimization happens on your subscription. What it is under the covers is it's an Azure automation account with pre-configured runbooks and schedules. For the initial release, which is out as of yesterday, there's 4 scenarios supported. So there's Auto Snooze, so based on low CPU, turn stuff off. And the reason why it's bolded is we're going to do a demo on that one. Scheduled snooze on ARM VMs, so that's just when you want to turn something off at a certain time and then turn it back on. That's that scenario. There's scheduled snooze with ascending and descending order using tags. So that example came in from one of our users was, I want to turn off my web front end, then my secondary SQL node, then my primary, and then flip the order around when I turn them back on.
Okay.
So that's
You don't want your clean shutdown to be like, let's cause a failover.
Yeah, you got it. So pretty reasonable scenario. And then we have bulk delete resource groups on demand. So that's where you just put in a comma separated list, do a cleanup. That's mostly for me. I do a lot of deployments and I need to clean up on occasion. So that's that one. Design principles. So yeah, I mentioned decentralized for Azure, no internal dependencies, and I talked briefly about Azure policy. So just again, that idea of you apply it at the subscription level. If you can manage resource there, fantastic. If that's too broad, then jump into resource groups. If that's still too broad, then include some exceptions to that same sort of thing. So take advantage of hierarchy. The cool stuff. It'd been about 18 months since I'd done anything with Azure Automation, so I don't actually know when these features came out. It was notable to me. I thought, oh, that's interesting. The cost is really cheap, so it's 0.2 of a cent per runbook minute. So every 500 minutes is $1. In the dev setup, I actually didn't exceed the 500 minutes, so I've yet to pay my $1, but it may come up. I don't know, but it's pretty cheap. The certificate and SPN management is a breeze. They have the concept of a run as account, which is like a nice manageability feature for an SPN on an Azure Automation account, so you can renew cert directly from the portal. It'll create it for you very easily, so just nice manageability features and authentication. And then we do a couple things that you can't typically do in terms of configuring Azure Automation account from an ARM template. So we do that using a bootstrap runbook. I did the pull submission into the Azure Quick Start repository. So when that gets published, I think that'll be kind of an interesting thing for people to build on. I haven't seen a code example for that yet, so I think it'll be interesting. So how do you know it's working? So you check the resources in the portal, which I'll show in the demo, and you check your runbook job outputs. So that is ARO Toolkit on one slide. And you only have to make it through 2 more slides and then we demo it.
Oh, good.
All right, so we'll get this thing picked up.
Okay.
So why do it? We spend a ton of money on Azure. There's not an easy way to continuously optimize. People generally have to review something and then take action. I'm always more empathetic to the person who's actually got to do the work. So I'm trying to make it to where you set it up and then you can, go out to lunch or go have coffee.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's talk about skills. So what you need to do, I said you don't have to write code. The things you do have to know how to do is just a few things in the Azure portal. Start runbooks and read output, update variables, and enable and create schedules. And I'm going to show you in this demo all of that will be hit on. So
cool.
You'll be trained. If you watch this video, you'll be trained up in an expert on ARO Toolkit. So use it now. I think the first one is where you go to actually deploy the thing, aka MS ARO Toolkits. Second one is now you can create and vote for new features. This is open to the public. It's always been designed to be open to the public. So create and update new features, aka.ms ARO Toolkit votes. Right there.
Right there.
Beautiful.
Right there. Okay.
Thanks.
And so that's actually just a user voice, which a lot of the Azure product groups and other teams use, right? So
yeah,
that's
exactly. So let's do the easy one. Let's look at the user voice first. So we've only been playing around with this for about a week, but already people are voting. It looks like it's a pretty nice way to enter in ideas, vote on stuff that other people have submitted, and this is going to weigh pretty heavily on what gets taken up in our backlog. So yeah, please vote. I'd love to hear the feedback after you try it out. So now let's jump into aka MS ARO Toolkits. We're trying to make a friendly URL. This will always redirect into the GitHub repository. I want to call out a few things just in the documentation itself. So the first thing is you can deploy from Azure just like any other Azure Quick Start template. And I want to run through a few. I know when I read documents, I never go to the appendix, but on this one, I'm going to call out some appendix stuff. So I mentioned this works off of pre-configured runbooks and schedules. So this Appendix B is going to have everything about your default schedule. All the different schedules, when they run, what it does, all that stuff for the different scenarios. Appendix C is going to be all about each runbook, same sort of thing, what parameters it takes in, what it does, how to use it. If you ever get confused just looking at the name, you can always come here.
I see child and parent in there.
Yeah, child and parent.
That?
Okay, this is a naming convention, so never execute. The pro tip is never execute one that's called child. If it's got parent or blank after the end, that's when you'll execute directly or schedule. So that's just that was my request too. I kept running the wrong ones in beta, so just to try to make it easier and not make the mistake. Once you deploy ARO Toolkit, now remember I mentioned there's a bootstrap process, so you'll see it complete. But then you have to wait about 10 or 15 minutes for that bootstrap to finish executing. I'm going to show you, basically to make sure that worked, make sure that the run as account is created. If not, this will have the steps for you to manually kickstart it.
Okay.
You'll run into this problem if you have a dual factor auth scenario, and that's just a hard blocker on the resource provider for now.
Okay.
In the end of this, I'll wrap up and say that is going away. I don't want to give too much away for the teaser at the end, but it's a temporary thing.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so let's deploy this thing. So let's hit our button. While that renders, I'm going to pull up PowerShell because, what demo isn't good without PowerShell? You always have to have something there, right?
Yep.
So let's do a new GUID. You'll see why I need that in a minute. You can also link directly off of the help within the template itself for that value. So let's just pick a new resource group. And we won't spend a tremendous amount of time on this. People have probably deployed an ARM template before. I'm just putting in some parameters here. This is what my Azure Automation account name is going to be. Now this admin account, this is used one time, and we clean it up after it. It's only for the bootstrap. I'm just going to put in a fake one here, but you'll at least see the format. And if you forget, you can always use that. Hover over, and then we'll put in a password.
So that's an AAD principle that you're looking for right there.
Yes, this particular account needs to be admin on the subscription you're deploying to, only at deployment time, and then you can remove it later. Okay, so boom, it deploys at that point. Now let's jump into one that I deployed last night. So 121, and let's go through some demo stuff and have a little bit of fun here. First up, let's look at our VMs that we'll be working with today. So we've got a couple VMs here. Oops. We've got a couple VMs here. We've got BallS ARO Test VM 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 and 2 are in resource group 1. 3 and 4 are in resource group 2. I'm going to copy some of these values here because we're going to need them in a second. And the only reason I'm doing this is because of, you can certainly type them in. This is just a matter of me putting in the right values and trying to make it easier. Okay. Now, for the parameters that we're going to use here, we are going to target, I'm going to show you the most common ones. So I mentioned the first thing you want to do is if you can run it at the subscription level, great. That makes your life easier. If you can run it at the resource group level, great. Next best thing. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. So you'll see that we're going to be working with those VMs, those resource groups, 1 through 4 on the VMs, 1 and 2 on the resource groups. So I'm going to show you the most common parameters that you'll be using. All right, so first up, I said one skill that people have to have is they need to be able to edit variables within Azure Automation. This is how you get to variables. The cheat sheet on this is that anything internal, you generally don't want to mess with unless you've got a good reason. Anything that's prefixed with external, that's what you'll want to do in order to modify the behavior. So the couple of groups that I want to target here is, first, if I were to leave this blank, this would execute across the whole subscription. But for our cool demo, let's target those 2 resource groups. Okay. Now, the second thing I'm going to show you is, all right, so we're targeting the 2 resource groups, but let's only turn off, 1 through 3, but not number 4. So this is the exclude, so I'm going to add number 4 to the exclude. So the behavior we should see is 1 through 3 should shut off, 4 should not shut off. And it should happen asynchronously in parallel.
So at that point you said, hey, out of all the resource groups on my subscription, only look at these resource groups.
Yeah.
And out of those, all the VMs you find, do everything except exclude that one.
Yeah, okay. You got it. Okay, now I'm going to show you a little bit on the flow of how I like to work with these. So again, appendix, it's in the appendixes. I want to say C or D is going to have what each of these runbooks do, but I know it's going to be Auto Snooze create alert parent because I've worked with it a time or two before. So we'll start it. Now there's a couple common parameters. What if? So what if you set this to false, this will execute and actually take an action. If you set it to true, this will only tell you what I would be doing. So let's set it to true, and let's run it. These jobs generally queue. Takes 30 seconds, a minute to do.
So what if it's true, it's just going to tell you what it would do.
Yeah.
If it was going to run. If it's false, it means hey, just go knock it out.
Yeah, you got it. Now, in order to make this thing not too boring, I'm going to jump around a little bit. And so what I'm going to show you, while that thing's executing, let me show you another feature. So this thing is called ARO Toolkit Auto Update. So we were thinking, and actually there's a couple of folks on my team who came up with this idea, and I really liked it. Basically, all right, so we'll get people to deploy this, but now we're going to release new scenarios. How the heck to keep it updated? Yeah. That's where this ARO Toolkit Auto Update comes into effect. This will update only the variables, runbooks, and accounts that we manage. Everything else it doesn't touch. So say you wanted to do your own scenario, just make sure you use your own variables and runbook names and schedules, and you're fine.
Okay.
But we will come back. Say we release a fix. So for example, we only do ARM VMs right now. We're probably going to do Classic here pretty quick. So that runbook will get updated.
Yep.
Okay. So in order to actually do that, and this was when I went back and forth on enabling as a default, but we decided just for consistency and explanation easily, let's leave it off. So
you've already gone in and switched it.
Yeah, it looks like I enabled this one already. This is the problem of doing the demos ahead of time. Yeah. But yeah, generally this is off. You go and you turn it Okay, so that's executing. Let's go back and look at our jobs and see if we've gotten any results just yet. All right, so here is let's see what we're doing here. Auto Snooze create parents. Okay, let's take a look. So input is what if is true. Output should show me just what it's going to take effect on. So you'll see here that we're going to target VM1 right there. We're going to target VM2 right there. We're going to target VM3, and I shouldn't see number 4. I don't see number 4, so cool. That's working as we expected. So at this point, I'm feeling, all right, I feel confident. I feel confident that if I run this for real, it's going to do what I want because it's only targeting the resources that I specified. So if I go back into parent, let's run this thing for real.
Start, change what if to false.
Yeah, you got it. And while we're doing that, okay, so what have I shown so far? So we showed the variables, we showed the viewing the runbook outputs. Now I'm going to show you setting up a schedule while this thing runs. So this one is going to run on demand, but let's say I want this thing to run every 8 hours. Or actually, that's what the default is. Let's say I want to have it run every 4 hours because I want to, save extra money. So let's do it. So I generally do it directly from the runbook itself. And let's create a new schedule. So we'll call it something that's meaningful to us. Auto Snooze.
Let's say Auto Snooze on Fridays.
I want to do every 4 hours.
Okay, every 4 hours.
All right. And then do recurrence, do it by hour, and then you're all set to go. This is pretty cool too. You can get day, week. You can select days if you do that week option. It's a pretty nice little scheduler built in for free. So I like it. It's a nice feature. So we'll create this schedule, and then remember we have to configure our one parameter. And so we're going to say false to what if, and now this thing, I believe these get enabled by default. Let's go back and check to make sure. But once it's as easy as that, now essentially we're running this job every 4 hours, and it's just a few clicks. And sorry, let me get.
So you can see here that it's going and running the child against those.
Yeah, you got it. So this is how we accomplish things asynchronously. So the parent kind of figures out all the VMs to execute, and it'll call the resources in parallel.
Okay.
The child runbooks in parallel. So let's have a look. So every 4 hours is on. We're all set to go. And then let's go back and look at our jobs and view some output here. Okay, so yeah, basically, again, you can see that it's logging in, it's starting to turn it off. Now let's go through and validate that it's doing what we're doing now. Okay, so now we're back on the pane where we're showing what should actually be happening. And indeed, it's working like we expected. So you see VM 1 through 3, they're in the status deallocating. And then number 4, which we had the exclude on, is set to running. Now, if I go back into the jobs view of my Azure Automation account, yeah, you'll see that I've created some Azure Alerts, which we'll stay out of for right now. You can read more about it. You can look through the code on Azure Alerts, but it's executing the stop child VM. And you notice there's 3 child runbooks. That's how asynchronous execution happens in this particular design. So you've got your parent, it decides which resources to target, it fires up that number of child runbooks.
Okay.
And it'll execute. So now you should have seen just about everything in this demo. You saw Auto Snooze, which is one of the more popular scenarios I've seen people use in the beta. You've seen how to edit variables. You've seen how to create schedules, and you've run runbooks and viewed output. That's it. That's all you need to know.
And so in the native portal, you can go into an IaaS VM and like schedule turn off, right?
Yeah.
But there's like, if you want to do it across 5, 10, 20, 30 VMs in a subscription,
Yeah.
this is a much cleaner way.
Yeah.
Or to say like, hey, you know, if you're a central IT team or you're the person that's part of an app dev organization and you've been given, you know, access to all of the subscriptions to go help figure out how to do stuff, you can go deploy this and say, hey, you know, these maybe this subscription has dev, test, and prod, so I need to know which resource groups are dev, so let's go shut them off. Turn them on at 9 a.m., shut them off at 4 or 5 p.m.
Yeah.
Go ahead and set those up for your developers so that way they don't have to worry about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you got it. I think that's one of our primary use cases. You nailed it. So,
Cool.
very good. All right, so let's see. We did the summary. Let's do the teaser. So let's go to Portal Azure. So right now I showed you GitHub. So you go in and click GitHub. It's got a GUID. You have to put in a service account. It's the part I'm less happy about, but I mentioned it's going away. So if you go into Marketplace and you look for Stop VM, you come up with this, they call it a marketplace solution. We won't deploy this, but it's a really nice clean UI. You can get it directly from the Azure Marketplace, and we're working now to take ARO Toolkits and merge it with this solution, the stop-start VMs during off-hours preview.
What do people need to know out of this? A couple URLs.
Yeah, a couple URLs. Where you go to actually deploy it, get the code, get the documentation is all one spot. Where you go to vote on new features and give feedback, that's another page. That's pretty much it. Oh, and we had all the skills, so we showed people how to do the skills. Everyone should be trained up now.
So when should we expect a follow-on to kind of go through this? A couple months?
Yeah, I'd say a month or two. We can get back together and maybe we can do some of the teaser stuff.
Yeah.
And then maybe we'll have a new scenario or
And
two
I think,
out
you
by
know,
then.
maybe in a couple of months too, we'll also see where the cloud thing goes too,
the
where
cloud
you
thing
guys can work
looks-
together. So
Looks
cool.
very cool.
Well, thanks, Todd. I think some of our enterprise and small and medium business customers are really going to gravitate towards this. That'll be anybody that's doing central hosting.
Yeah.
This is a kind of a sweet spot for them. So
I appreciate it, Lyle. It's always fun to chat.
thanks for that, and we'll see you on the next Azure in the Enterprise.